I'm Mark Unger, producer of Roundtable. Because we find this presentation so special, we really would like for you to see this. Please watch.
Good evening and welcome to Manhattan Neighborhoods Network Roundtable, Single Shot. Today we're going to be talking about social justice and place of photography in bringing light to it and essentially fixing it. And to discuss it, we asked to join us Kewin, a photographer who was published as a journalist in many newspapers and magazines around the world, and some of the largest newspapers of this country as well, and who is working on several projects in documentary photography that actually discuss some vital issues that our society is facing. And we probably can start with the one that probably tears apart our country right now, the question of immigration. Hello, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. So, as I understand, you started a project about immigration to America from to United States from Latin America a while ago, and now you're planning to revisit it and add more.
Right, and add more. One of my earliest ones, I guess, would be what I call the Iron Triangle. It's a place in Queens, and it's Willets Point, right outside of the old Shea Stadium or Citi Field, where basically the whole place was full of immigrants trying to eke out a living, you know, just fixing your car and becoming, they were like artisans, I would say, because they came, yeah, they were great. Some of the guys were, you know, they'd look at a problem and just figure it out in their head and hammer out a fix to it, and you're like, wow, how'd you do that? So
just like in this joke, right?
And keep it running. It's like it's like really great. And then and that's when the city decided to take it over and try and now it's almost gone, but take it over and, you know, clean it up, which is going to cost a lot of money. It's a big Superfund site because of, I think, about 100 years of pollution in that area, and going back to building ships and stuff like that, or dumping crap there.
Really?
Yeah. And
they will be building ships in New York again.
Well,
that's cost efficient.
Well, no, but this is many years ago when they were doing it there, like during the Civil War, and they had a battle there. That's why you get named after Willets Point. And but it's like Flushing River is like really polluted there, and it's like you don't want to go sticking your feet in the water. But the people there were very interesting and lovely people, and I've gotten to photograph as they've grown older, as the children grown up. One child became a police officer, and his brother is a DACA recipient, and the father is working here with with a green card and running a business. And I'm going like, you know, this is the story of America now. So
indeed, it sounds very archetypical.
Yeah. And that's when I first started the project, the idea, and then before that I was in California photographing around the border there in the 90s, and which was very colorful and interesting.
Well, it was kind of looser than it is now, and definitely not as controversial.
Right, and it was, and the people were still open and friendly, and you could walk around and just photograph glorious and wonderful people. And I always liked that.
So you planning to come back because now the situation changed and the outlook at it?
It's changed, and where immigrants are thought of as a dirty word, and like everybody in this country, unless you're a Native American, you're an immigrant. So.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going like, you know, try and find a way to fix this so people aren't suffering. And I met a woman while I was photographing her who was and her child, and they literally came from Latin America, from Central America, by foot, by car, by everything. Nothing happened to her, she said, because she had a faith in God, and that God told her to come here to be with her family. So, and I'm going oh, and I was crying when this lady was telling me, and she asked me, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Well, your story is powerful, lady."
Emotional, of course.
And the photograph is the photograph I got of her, that I was allowed to photograph her, was to me emotional. And then she called me up to tell me that she got to where she was going safely.
This is
and I was going
inspiring story.
She called me. I've never had that happen. But you know, this is the nice thing about photography, and I'm finding in this world we're living in, or in this place we're living in now, where people more want to scream at you and yell at you to get their point done, instead of sitting down and listening to each other like they used to. And I'm hoping, you know, my photography will start making people think a little bit, you know. But that's the hope of every photographer, I think.
It's definitely a hope of every photographer, journalist, everybody who creates something and try to point out something they see themselves. But in reality, it actually happens way
Very
less often than we would want to.
Yeah, and you know, it's like you always hope. So
can you recall maybe of any instance when there was an instrumental change caused by one of your series, or maybe just by one picture, something that would give us the hope that it will be happening more often?
Well, one picture would probably be by Eddie Adams from Vietnam, where the police, I can't remember what he was, shot the Viet Cong in the head.
Oh yeah.
That changed a lot. That changed.
Oh, that's positively the picture that changed this world a lot.
Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about general
changed
photography, the guy from Tiananmen from China who was standing in front of the tanks,
that changed things. And you know, I think photography can do that, and the power of visual images can do it, and also the written word can do it also. And I think when you combine those two, it becomes a very strong and powerful force for good and or evil. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, it's a very interesting thing to discuss, captions. It was commonplace for photography all the time, and indeed it's really necessary, but on the other hand, that particular piece of information could be the biggest source of bias and actually twisting the photograph, sometimes 180 degrees.
Right, but you have to try and, like with me, when I write captions, I just try and be what the person told me, or what the person does, and who, what, when, and where, and why. Sort of like what AP captions, but just try and stick to that. And like another thing, another series that I would say changed the way people see things is Walker Evans and James Agee working together on in the Deep South, photographing migrants and farmers and people suffering through the Depression. And how that changed things. Or like the Farm Security Administration, the photography there changing.
You think that photography actually supplemented for the change in the policy?
Yes, I think it changed the way we helped get things passed that helped people. And back during the Depression, during the 40s, and I think it helped. And to this day, I always look back to the great photographers of that era to like give me strength and go on.
Now you're actually making me think that in our society, which is divided at the moment beyond the point which it probably ever been, at least for the past 100 years, it wasn't for sure. The photography actually is one of the very powerful tools which, if used for that purpose, can help to reunite us again, to actually let the opponents, the opposite sides, to see the human face of each other. Because for most part, especially when it's biased and politically charged photography, these faces are painted in a very specific way.
Right.
And that actually reminds me of another series that you was working on recently, the Trumpland.
Yes, which is a working title, I think, and it's a title that it's more or less how people are treating each other now in the United States in this, like, sometimes bullying way. But I think too, it's also trying to find the commonality, the common ground where we can get back and not be bullies with each other, and that means the left bullying the right bullying the left, and then everybody bullying everybody else. So I'm going like, you just got to like chill and like stop this, and that because like when you see photography, I've been looking back at Bill Epridge, who's a great photographer and went to the University of Missouri and was following RFK along his campaign. And
just save this thought. We will be back after this brief pause. Today in Single Shot, I'm going to tell you how to make a makeshift pinhole camera. It's actually very simple. All you need is a business card. I'm gonna use mine, but you can use any. You need to apply 2 pieces of duct tape on it, just like this, so they will be overlapping each other. And right in the middle of the card, from the inside, pierce a small hole. The smaller and rounder it is, the better will be your result. And put this contraption right on the camera, so the hole is right in the middle of the lens space. Then point it at what you would like to take a picture of, put the camera on delay, and take the shot. Voila! You have your pinhole camera shot. Thank you, and watch us on YouTube. Alright, so we're back after this break, and we was talking about the speech of RFK.
yeah, I mean, like, one of the pictures I like is of RFK sitting on the side of a convertible, and it's speeding along, and he's sitting there, and people are like waving at him, and
Sure.
or like when you see people like of all races and colors just coming up and trying to grab the guy, and he's trying to,
Wow, he sure was a people's guy.
yeah, and but the thing is that when I look at photography by masters or people that I've known and gotten to know over the years, like Robert Frank, Saul Leiter, Lou Stetner, and I look at people like this and who I've gotten to know and respect and learn and from them, and these people shaped my way of seeing things.
Oh,
like Mel Rosenthal also was a big influence too, who was a social documentary photographer who concentrated on the South Bronx.
Oh, it's actually a very interesting question. On one hand, if you have a social angle to photography, you're kind of inclined to induce some kind of controversy, some kind of animosity. It's natural, it's just going to happen. But on the other hand, we talked before we started our conversation, and you mentioned that it's very important for you to have hope in your pictures, the concept of hope.
Yeah.
I totally agree with both. I do believe in social justice, and I do believe that every form of art have to be creating hope in one way or another,
Right.
and that's the only thing that is a big no-no, to have something hopeless in it.
Right. Because to me, if it's the hopeless, then you're like, oh. But I think you have to have hope in everything. And hope can come in many surprises.
Yeah.
Well, as a photographer, and you're not actually looking for it, it just happens, I think. Like what
Absolutely, yeah.
happened with me, with this lady who I met in McAllen, who actually called me to tell her, ask her relatives to call me, to tell me that she got okay, and that when she got here to the United States and she was out of detention and she was getting her ticket and information to go to her family by Greyhound from Texas.
Oh.
She said to me, her relative said to me that she said that I made her feel like the weight of the world was lifted off to her shoulders, or something like she was feeling anxious and nervous and afraid, and then she met me and she felt better. And I was going like, here I am just eating dinner and I'm listening to this and I'm getting floored.
Not
And
just hope, it's actually hope that turned out to be something
better,
concrete and specific.
Yeah, and I'm going like, this is the power of photography. That
Indeed it is.
yeah, and then being a photographer, I think we can move into these situations and find
Wow.
something beautiful. That's
Put humanity into the concept and allegory, absolutely.
yeah.
But getting back to the series Trumpland, the name itself in a way makes it sound biased, but
Right.
again, I know that it's not biased
Right.
at all. It's actually something completely different.
Right,
So
because
can you tell me a little more?
Trumpland to me is like, it's not about Trump. It's about what's happening to us as a people in this country, being torn apart like we've never been torn apart. Like people always disagreed about politics, right? And they've always screamed at each other in fits of rage and oh, and I'm going like, that's part of life in a free democracy or republic. And I'm going like, the reason I named it Trumpland, it's a working title. It might change, but it's just that I find people are not listening to each other. They basically are screaming, trying to scream over each other instead of talking to each other.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, and you know, that to me is like, I think that's where photography can come in and start making a difference also, because it shows an image. And people look at the image and go like, that's,
Absolutely.
it makes you think.
So in a way, it's in quotation marks Trumpland.
Right.
Because as you was mentioning before, you found some pretty intense individuals and
Yes.
some really beautiful
Well,
personalities.
yes, yeah, and it's a way of like trying to say there's hope in this land, in this era of, or in this administration, that there's hope that things can change back to, or change for the better. And people are, I can see people doing their little thing to make things better. It doesn't matter if they're screaming at each other or what, but then toward the end of the day, I see, like, I met a sheriff by the name of Benny Martinez, who's like, he's just doing this one thing of like following the law and trying to save lives, and you could see he's emotionally into his people in the county that he lives in Texas, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful, you know, and this is something that can change the country back, as people like him, you know.
Oh, make America great again in more natural
Yeah,
way.
in a natural way, not like a powerful way, or like, but make the people great again, and put us back together and make us talk instead of screaming at each other. So, and I can see that's what I see as a documentary reportage photographers trying to tell stories like this that also can transcend the United States and go into Europe, where my agency is, which is a great agency that I've found, and the owner, Annie Boulard, is like a mother to all of us, and she's great.
Oh.
And And it's a, you know, it's like all agencies struggling in this economy and the world, and but we have some of the greatest photographers doing photography for social change and documentary and reportage.
Well, I know that besides social and political issues inspired series, you have some that, in my understanding, are more based on aesthetics, both visual and literally.
Right.
Like the series about rodeo girls, for example.
Yeah, the Rodeo Girls was like Sweetheart of the Rodeo was like it's basically about a girls sporting thing. It's like girls wanting to be a rodeo queen or wanting to be the best barrel racer in a male-dominated sport.
Oh,
and
it's
it's
pretty tough trade.
and these
today.
girls are, and even the cowboys are like respecting these girls for riding these horses like
Wow,
like
it's
crazy.
Indeed, going
Yeah.
against the
Yeah.
system and succeeding.
Yeah,
That's
and these
something
girls are boom, powerful ladies, and I really enjoyed photographing them, and I got to be friends with them, and I still want to go back and do follow-ups with them too. Like there's a woman I want to see if I can get in touch with who immigrated from Sweden to save the wild horse of America, and she sometimes has no money, and she's just doing her thing in the Southwest and trying to save horses.
We still have wild horses living
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah.
I thought they was extinct quite a
No,
while
no,
ago.
no.
Oh,
They're still running around, and
this is beautiful.
yeah, and when you, I have friends like, you know, Randy Olson and Melissa Farlow, who I studied with, and they're great photographers who are geographic photographers shooting wild horses.
Oh, I'll get back after this short break, and there will be something we still have to discuss about modern journalistic photography.
Right.
Today I will be talking about depth of field, so if you're familiar with the concept you can move on to the next episode. But if you're not, I'm often asked how the aperture works besides just controlling how much light gets into a camera and how light or dark your image is. And in simple words, the larger your opening of the aperture is, the smaller will be distance on which your camera is focused. And if you would photograph something like this branch with the open aperture, you will get the image that is focused only on a certain distance, something like this. But if you close it all the way down and take the same picture, you will get the almost the whole plane, everything like this, to be in focus. And in one case you will get more focused attention of the viewer on a specific part of your photograph. Back, we have our small 3-minute section left, and there is one thing I wanted to touch bases on. As a journalist, as a photographer who has career in photography, you probably can see that there are a lot of changes happening with the industry in terms of its commercial side, and there are two very big components that are causing them. One of them is smartphones, and specifically cameras of the smartphones. And another one is Photoshop.
Right.
As Photoshop expert, I can just say to you this joke that, I can disfigure you in 30 seconds, I'm guru of Photoshop.
Right.
I can guarantee you that if there is a picture that is made by the expert, modified by the expert in Photoshop, with an intent to cover up that it was modified, it will take a forensic scientist to actually tell that it's a fake.
Right.
So how we can deal with that? First of all, people don't trust photograph anymore because of this. And secondly, the value of photography, especially journalistic photography, was diminished in the eyes of the society.
Well, I think that like Photoshop, like I follow strict rules where I don't do cloning or manipulation or changing the image. If a branch happens to stick out of somebody's head, it's a branch. It's in the scene, it's there. May not look good, but what are you going to do? Next time, I move a little different.
That's
but
true.
Smartphones, I think, are a tool. Like I find it a tool for me. Sometimes I can get lower with a smartphone than I can with my camera, and I like that. Or I can do something with it. It's a thing I keep in my tool bag. You know, a camera bag to me is a tool bag, and I still use film and scan it. It's a tool that's still there, and to me, a digital tool, if it's a smartphone or a camera, you should be able to use all these tools at your disposal to try and create something meaningful.
Well, I can't help not to ask a quick question about that. Why you finding film to be still relevant for you? What is so special for you in film in terms of
well, there's a look, there's a color if you're using color. In black and white, there's a graphic in black and white that you can't get in digital. I think you can change it in Photoshop to look like it, but there's still, to me, something that's not there into my eye, as when I scan a negative. And scanning, to me, there's like a magic I've always found between that sensor and the negative, just scanning it, and it looks really beautiful. So.
Indeed it does. Well, I hope we're going to see each other again and speak more about it. We still didn't get into this objectivity question. It was barely touching. Thank you very much, Kewin. It was really inspiring and great show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I did. I'm Mark Unger for Roundtable. Thanks for watching.